EdTech Missions? What's that all about?
Welcome to the Hack Learning Podcast, progressive education that provides right now solutions and never requires a 5-year plan. And now, here's your host, a man who believes old school teachers should be put in a timeout, Mark Barnes.
Thank you for joining episode 102 of the Hack Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Barnes, and today we're going to talk about education technology, such a popular topic in education, and it's often just about tools or about Google Classroom or some sort of learning management system. But today we're going to go beyond all of that, and we are going to talk about EdTech Missions. It just sounds cool. And who better and who cooler to talk about EdTech Missions with than the amazing Shelly Sanchez Terrell, author of Hacking Digital Learning Strategies, 10 Ways to Launch EdTech Missions in Your Classroom. And I'm so excited about this. I'm bursting. Because Shelly, if you don't know Shelly, and who doesn't know Shelly Terrell, but if you don't know Shelly, she is one of the foremost education technology gurus on the planet, literally. And when I say on the planet, I mean all around it, because Shelly teaches education technology and other best practices in education all over the globe. So let's bring Shelly on and talk about EdTech Missions. Shelly Sanchez Terrell, welcome to the Hack Learning Podcast. Tell us what's going on in your world and a little bit about EdTech Missions.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I really love being part of the Hacking Learning Series. I just think it's amazing, wonderful, and I know you have a blog called, or site called Brilliant or Insane, and I have to say it's absolutely brilliant. So I do appreciate being part of the series. I want to say about EdTech Missions, and a little part of my life is that I recently became a new mommy. And so my daughter, she's growing up in this digital world. And so the EdTech Missions are geared around that, around our learners who are growing up in a highly digital world. Most of them, now I've been to over 26 countries, and I've been to really poor countries and areas and taught refugees. And I've noticed all of them do have cell phones, even if they're basic cell phones. You know, everyone is getting connected, and they're finding ways for that connecting to really improve their learning, to share their passions. And so the missions are revolve around that. It just gives them a purpose, a responsibility with that technology, because now anyone who does go and connect on the internet has an audience, and everything they do, whether it's just liking something or sharing it or spreading forward, does impact the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you say, Shelly, about the cell phones, the smartphones, just the mobile learning piece of this. It used to be as little as a year or two ago, anytime I would write, you mentioned Brilliant or Insane, I used to write a lot about education technology there. And a lot of times people would write on the blog or on our Facebook page or on Twitter questions about integrating technology, and they'd say, well, what about the classrooms where kids don't have it? But, we don't get that question very much anymore, because as you say, even traveling around the globe, and sometimes even in some of the places where there's not a lot of affluent schools or students, they have the technology. It's just so readily available now. So tell us a little bit more, Shelly, about mission-minded learning, and I know there's some project-based learning or problem-based learning that is associated with this. So I want our listeners to be comfortable with this idea of mission-minded learning with technology.
Well, just like you mentioned, it's just like, project-based learning, problem-based learning. Think more like problem-based learning. And what a mission is, we think of, when I was writing this, and for a long time I've been talking about missions, what I talk about is like Mission Impossible. We think of, at the beginning where he gets his mission. They give him, unfortunately it's called a target there, but they do give them like what their task is, just like we do when we have a project. Here's your project. This is the task. But with that kind of learning, they have to learn tools. It's not that any explorer or scientist or, hero, military hero, anything like that. Anytime they're given a mission, and it is called a mission, they're given a purpose. It makes the world a better place. And they have to learn tools, which involve technology, to be able to accomplish that. They also have to do research and learn more about whatever they're accomplishing. So it is project-based, problem-based learning. They're trying to solve something. And the reason it becomes a mission is because there's an added component to that project problem-based learning, which is that it makes the world, specifically those around them, it improves their lives. So that's where it becomes that mission-minded learning, where the students know, when I accomplish this task, and they're told at the beginning, here's your mission. When you finish this successfully, and we have the mission cards in the book that say that, when you accomplish this mission successfully, you will, and they know how they're going to improve somebody's life after using that learning.
And what could be better than that? The idea that we're not just saying, here's a tech tool. Because I think that, technology integration in the classroom, it's a tricky thing. Just like project-based learning, it's not just putting things on a poster like we did in the old days. Back when I first started teaching, good heavens, like 25 years ago, if you wanted to do a project, you gave kids a poster and they pinned some things on there and held it up and talked about it. And we thought that was project-based learning. But there's so much more to it now. And I love that you say it's going to make their lives or the world a better place, because that's what technology really is now. It isn't just take a tool and, write a paper in a Word document or on a Google Doc or create a slide. There's so much more to it. And I like how you say it is a mission. It is a project. It's take this problem and solve it. And at the end, here's what you will have accomplished. So, Shelly, I know our listeners are so used to the hack learning format. They're used to, here's our problem and our hack, and then here's what you can do tomorrow. And they're always eager for that. I get people reach out all the time and say, I love, not only in the books, but even on the podcast, how, sometimes I'm listening on my way to work. I get that a lot, and I love that. And then you say, well, here's something you can do tomorrow or today. So let's take an example. We talked about mission-minded learning, the idea that we're making the world a better place with technology, that it's more than the tools. There's a lot of strategy involved. Give us one example of an EdTech mission and what it might look like in the classroom.
Well, so some of them, and one of the bigger missions, and so there's some of the missions such as like the Selfie one, and we've, kind of shared a lot about that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they can do tomorrow is just, there's a lot of content where it talks about where they reflect on, how selfies, they look at how different selfies impact the self-belief of the student. In the book, it mentions the first selfie, and then students answer a question about just looking at one that the listeners think about, the year of they think that the first selfie was. But we find out later it's 1839 in the book. Okay, so and that's pretty common knowledge. You can Google, but a lot of listeners might be surprised to that, and students too.
Yeah, I think they all would, right? Who would have ever thought that? I know when I was reading the book first, I thought, wait a minute, 1839. We don't consider even a camera or anything back then a technology. Yeah. It's so different. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That we're talking so long ago that there was a selfie, and I think that's a great way to introduce it to kids. So then they're doing more, though. We think selfie, it's just grab your phone and take a picture. And how could that be mission-minded? How could that be about, extending learning? So tell us more.
So for that one, it is something they can do tomorrow. They just show have them guess the date, then they show them the selfie. And then they answer questions that are listed in the book to reflect. So that's something they can do. But the actual mission is they go on an epic Selfie Adventure and what that entails, there's more to that. It's where they actually, most selfies, they take, the focus is on the individual and their face and looking a certain way. And that has a lot of serious implications for self-belief, esteem. Their peers rate that. They put that. A selfie is never taken just for you on your camera. Selfies are always published online, and we have to realize that, which means that someone's going to judge that. Someone's going to like it, or students realize when there is the absence of likes. And that really does a lot for their self-esteem. So for the adventure, it takes away that focus. The students are actually creating a slide presentation. We have different formats for them, but at the basic level, they can do a slide presentation, and they take selfies, and it's not, they get challenges within that mission. So they take it with their favorite book, a hero, a new friend, a group one. They have to collaborate together to try and come up with, as many people who can fit in one picture. And all of that does take skill, but it also, it gets them to reflect on, what's the impact of the different selfies you can take, and not just me for my peers. They have fun doing this. They actually learn things.
Wait a minute now, Shelly. Take it easy here. You're saying that learning can be fun? Is this okay? It's all right to have fun while we learn? I love that aspect of it. The whole idea of the selfie. I think there's probably, I think most of our listeners are pretty progressive minded. But I think if someone who is in more of a traditional setting heard us talking about having kids use their devices and take a selfie and then use that, they might be a little freaked out. So I like the idea. I think we're talking a little bit about digital citizenship too, right? And appropriate use. We're teaching kids, that it's not just taking a picture, but it's also sharing with the world a little bit about me, who I am and who my friends are and the things that are important to me. And that if I'm sharing that out there, it needs to be the kind of thing that I'm okay with, that I'm maybe even proud of, because we talk about digital footprint, right? And kids don't get that.
Exactly. And the other part about it, like you were talking about digital citizenship, we look at the core of it. That is the first introduction to digital society. If we think of the digital world and kids entering it, they are a citizen as a person. That is them coming in, and it doesn't matter. It's different than the world. In the world, you don't start making decisions that really make it great until you're 18, when you get out of school and stuff like that. Maybe teenagers, but you vote, you do. That's not the way it is in the digital world. In the digital world, as soon as you enter, the first thing you post, the first thing you share, all of that within your network, you're automatically, as a citizen, impacting. And so a selfie is a lot more. It's like basically saying, here, this is me. This is my digital avatar role, or, this is me as a citizen in the Instagram community or the Snapchat community or whatever. And I'm sharing this, and all of, whatever I share, whatever I put out there, impacts every single member of that community that I've just welcomed myself into. So I think it goes really deep, like you were saying about citizenship. And we don't think about that with students. We think, oh, they're just being silly, or there's so much they're so into their egotism. And sometimes we complain about it, but we don't really do anything to make it better.
Absolutely. I love that. If this were a baseball game, you just hit it out of the park, Shelly, because that is such a huge one. I get a lot too from teachers is, I think there's still fear, with devices, with social media, with digital learning, I know, one of my children's at a school where they just put out a new policy, and it's all about putting the phones away. When you walk into school, not only are they saying keep it in their locker like they used to, now the teachers are collecting them. And I say, oh my goodness, we're going backwards in time. We need to be moving forward. But there is that fear, and I think that hacking digital learning strategies is great for overcoming those fears and helping teachers, as you just said, to say, we have to teach kids digital citizenship. We have to teach them appropriate use. We have to teach them that a selfie is more than just a selfie. It's a digital
Exactly.
footprint. And I think there's so much of that in here. And the book begins with that and then delves so much deeper. And I think there's layers to it, and it just tends to get more sophisticated. And we're sending kids on these missions that are so involved. But Shelly, before we wrap today, the one thing I want to also hear a little bit more about from you that I'm really excited about in hacking digital learning strategies is this mission toolkit. And this is something new for us in hack learning that I'm overwhelmed by it, and I know the work you put into it is just unbelievable. So at the end, we've got our hack learning book. We've got 10 missions. We might in other books call those hacks. We've got missions. We've got all of the pieces. There's things that our readers can do tomorrow. There's wonderful images. It's all there. But then when you think it's over, there's this mission toolkit. I mean, this thing is robust. There's like 25 or 6
Yes.
different kits in the book. Tell us a little bit about the toolkit and the value of it for teachers who have hacking digital learning strategies.
Well, I have to say, a lot of that came, inspired by you. Well, you pulled it out of me, so I really thank you for that. But it did. It's over 20, and I'll put it in, instructional, like teacher words. It's handouts, graphic organizers, templates, everything that's going to make it easy. So I think missions are grand. They are. So when you look at the mission, the different mission, each mission has a card. And yeah, it's a grand mission. Like one is create a digital book. The kids contribute to digital textbook. A lot of teachers say, wow, that's huge. That's a huge undertaking. How am I supposed to do that? So in the toolkit, we have a template on Google that kids can, just 1 or 2 pages, it lays it all out there. So that way it really does cut down the time. And that's what the toolkit, that's why it has 24 different. And these are options. These are options to cut the time in half, so that some of these missions can be accomplished within a week, within 2 or 3 days. So that way it makes it more realistic and more doable for a teacher, especially a teacher who's new with technology. Maybe they just want to tackle 1 mission, 2 missions. They have everything there. They have, the assessments. They have options for the how to start it, the pre-task activities, which are, the things, what can I do tomorrow?
And it's all there. That's the beauty of it.
There.
Like a pre-test, so I know a lot of our readers, they tell me often that, they love that they can grab a hack learning book, they read a chapter and go, okay, this is great. I'm going to take this into school tomorrow and try it. And that's phenomenal. But now we've just taken it a step further. So now it's like, okay, you were talking about the Selfie Adventure and getting kids to reflect. And there's so much of that in the mission toolkit where you think, okay, well, let's start this off with it's all, like a pre-test or a pre-read. Let's start it off with some questions. And there they are.
Exactly.
The teachers don't have to go make them up now. They've got it in the book. They can grab it, digital copy. You could download it from the book. We're encouraging people to just take it in and photocopy it.
Exactly.
Most people would say, hey, don't copy the book. Most people say that. And here it's like, hey, we want you to take it into school, lay it on a printer, print it out, hand it out to the kids, use it. And that, I think, is just such a powerful piece of this book that I'm so excited about. And I know teachers are going to be excited about it too. And there's a buzz going on. And now we've carried that, of course, to Twitter. So, Shelly, tell us a little bit about EdTech Missions on Twitter, and if I'm listening and I'm going, okay, well, I'm going to get this book, but I want to talk about this right away. Tell people what to do.
Well, part of this is definitely we have the mission and action section. And so what I'm doing is that I'm trying to get some of those, the teachers that are represented to answer questions on the blog, but also during the EdTech Missions chat. So every Sunday, it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. That I know that's 9 a.m. Central in Texas. But what we do is just 2 questions we answer. We have 2 or 3 topics that cover 1 chapter, just to give more examples to answer any more, because they are missions. They're grand. So it gives more answers, more examples, more ways of, achieving things. We also have where if they can't make it, I know there's tons of chats, even the Hack Learning chat, that's really great on Sundays, on Twitter, or maybe they're not comfortable on Twitter. We also have a video. We have the video chat of it. So we've done this on a tool called Flipgrid. It's free. They don't even have to register. They go to my blog, they see it, they put in the code, and they can, in a minute and 30 seconds, they do a video answering the question.
Yeah, Flipgrid's great, and I know that's another tool that's really catching on, and it's right there with mission-minded learning. It's more than just video; it's also conversation and interaction with others through video, which is phenomenal. We're going to put that up on our show notes page over at hacklearningpodcast.com. This is episode 102. And if you go over there, you'll be able to click on that link and get some show notes, and we'll link to Shelly's blog, and there you can find the Flipgrid, and of course we'll link to the Twitter chat and all things EdTech Missions. Shelly, Sanchez, Terrell, the book is Hacking Digital Learning Strategies, 10 Ways to Launch EdTech Missions in Your Classroom. And it's a different kind of EdTech because it's a different kind of evolving world of technology. And, we've seen pictures of that beautiful daughter of yours with that phone in her hand. And I think people, that's just such a marvelous image of what this is. They're starting early, So EdTech Missions are great. Shelly, thank you so much for joining us. This has been fabulous. As the missions continue to grow and the Twitter chat grows and all, we're going to have to circle back and do this again soon. But I really appreciate you spending the time today.
Well, thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the Hack Learning Podcast with edu-hacker extraordinaire Mark Barnes. If your ears can stand it, listen to more at hacklearningpodcast.com and read a hack learning book, for crying out loud. They're smart, practical, and shockingly inexpensive. Grab one today at hacklearningbooks.com.